Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
Let's shake all of our good luck gree and squeak it. Get this case off to a good start.
Okay.
Before we get started,
Yes.
I want to shout out Sherry. She wrote us the sweetest email about becoming a lifelong listener and how we get her through her long days. And she actually said that she started from the beginning and that she's in for a wild Crime Curious ride. She recognizes that, a lot has changed over the 4 years that we've been on air, but
Absolutely.
I just wanted to shout her out because she wrote such a sweet email to us, and
Thank you, Sherry.
we love receiving emails like that. And welcome to the listening family, Sherry. So
Yes. Keep buckled in
Yes.
at all times. We are not responsible for items lost or stolen.
right.
Legs and arms in the vehicle at all times.
And the turbulence that you
That's
may
right.
experience. But for today's case suggestion, I need to thank Jasmine. While I was down and out with pneumonia, which I am feeling so much better.
You have a voice now,
Yes.
and you don't sound like you're dying.
Yes, I have a voice. The last time we recorded, which was nearly 2 weeks ago, we've been out of the studio for 2 weeks because
Yes.
I thought I was being drugged from this earthly plane. I mean,
Yes.
I got really, really, really sick.
And then I was gone for an extended weekend, an uber long weekend with an old high school friend.
Yeah.
So,
Which
it was
turned
a
out
perfect
fine because I
storm.
was really horrifically
You
sick
were,
when you were
yeah.
gone. But while I was down with pneumonia, my sweet husband gave me a Mother's Day present early because he could recognize my boredom where I was just like asleep. When I'm awake, you guys need to know I have to be doing something.
Right.
Always. I am a busybody. And when you have pneumonia and you're awake, you still can't do anything. He recognized I was miserable, so he gave me a paper Kindle. The Paperwhite Kindle.
Yeah.
It's a Kindle that you can read outside because it
I
stays,
love them.
Yes, I did not have one.
Okay.
So he gave it to me. I instantly downloaded this book as a recommendation from Jasmine. And now I'm bringing us a 2-parter because
Excellent.
I read. It was so nice while I was sick.
You're going to bring me something awful. Because
I
2-parters from you are never like
Never
calm
good.
ones.
They
They're
never are. No, this is a horrific child abuse case. Just to give you guys some fair warning.
You also know
here.
that this is our specialty in terms of dissecting and having opinions.
And after having agony in my heart for what this victim went through, it turned into resolve to turn this into a detailed 2-part coverage so that the world will never forget who Sylvia Likens was. That name might sound familiar. There is plenty of coverage on it. Some of it good, some of it rushed, and some of it like really detailed. But you've never heard it from a Crime Curious perspective. So even if this is a case that you're familiar with, still listen. I still encourage you to listen. Just even for a moment to be able to continue to remember Sylvie. Mm-hmm. Before we get to Sylvia, though, I want to paint a picture of how the monster that ends up taking her life was first shaped. So we're going to go back some generations.
The primordial sludge.
Yes, exactly. Let's talk about Gertrude von Fossen.
We have female primordial sludge.
Yes, we do. We do. This is not a typical case.
Okay.
It really isn't.
Tell me about Gert.
So Gert, she did go by Gert. Mm-hmm.
Of course she did.
And eventually that's how we will refer to her as, is Gert. Also, I like that it just kind of sounds like something
Vomit?
that you, that's what I was going to say, that you like vomit up just a little bit. Mm-hmm.
She tastes like primordial sludge. I'm going to stick with it.
Perfect. I think you should. Gertrude von Fossen was born September 19th, 1928 in Indianapolis, Indiana, to Hugh Marcus von Fossen Sr. and Molly Myrtle von Fossen. Gert, as she was called and will be called for the remainder of this case, was the third of 6 children. She was a daddy's girl through and through, so much so that her mother and her siblings resented her for her close relationship with her father. She was born right before the Great Depression, so keep this in mind too. The family had very little, so attention was kind of the free commodity that all children who grew up in those harsh times really wanted, right? Attention was everything. Gert's mother was cold and resentful to her, even from toddlerhood, because she saw the love and affection that Hugh gave Gert, and she saw this as a threat. Her mother borderline hated her. It was only her father who was kind. And remember, her siblings resented her too. So Gert did grow up in a very hostile environment.
And that's a lot of trauma. And some people, it makes the perfect recipe for evil.
And for Gert, it absolutely did, especially with what I'm about to tell you. She grew up with her father being the only kind person to her until she was 10 years old.
I know what's coming next.
Nope, it's not what you think.
Okay.
I know what you probably think it is.
You do.
It's not.
Okay.
At 10 years old, she watched her father have a heart attack right in front of her while she was practicing reading to him. He was only 50 years old. Her mother came in, seeing her dead husband laying on the kitchen floor, and started to demand to know what Gert had done to him, which of course she had done nothing to him because she's 10 years old and she was just reading her daddy a story when he had a massive heart attack and died, but that didn't matter.
Her mom didn't like her anyway.
Exactly.
She was resentful.
And so how easy is it to now just make her the scapegoat, right? Which we see in a lot of families, especially larger families. So Gert begged her mother to call the doctor, to which her mother replied, "I have no doctor money. Do you?"
She's 10.
She's 10, exactly. She then went into the other room and she explained to the children what heaven was and that daddy went to heaven while Gert, see, I mean, even saying her name sometimes gets stuck in the throat there. While Gert curled up in her dead father's arms while he lay on the kitchen floor.
That's so awful, though. Here's the part where we get to feel, this is the time that we get to feel remorse for villains. It's always this piece where it hits me right in the gut a little.
We can be sorry for the childhood that they had, but not for who they become.
Right.
Okay.
And we tell this to people all the time because we know plenty of people, survivors of this type of abuse, who've turned into amazing, beautiful human beings.
Yes. And just as mental illness is not your fault, but it is your responsibility, childhood trauma like this, not your fault, but it is your responsibility to process through it.
Yeah.
Not to use it as a way to then cause trauma to others, or an excuse to do so. Obviously, the death of her father did not help her relationship with her mother. In fact, she was simply irrationally blamed for it and anything else that went wrong in the house from that point forward. Hence this, what I say, the scapegoating. Gert began having night terrors from the trauma of the death of her father itself, just from the death and how it all happened, but then also from the lack of love from her mother. This resulted in her mother beating her for disrupting the sleep of the other children, because night terrors are very disruptive.
Oh, I've had a child that was a night terrors child. Have you ever had one?
No.
It's
None of my
awful.
children had them.
Yeah,
luckily.
My Gracie was a night terrors kid, and she slept so hard through them and always had a good night's sleep, but she would scream at the top of her lungs from the end of the
No
hallway.
one else was having a good night's sleep?
No, not so much. No, my favorite was when she yelled really, really loud, "I want my own birthday cake." And I realized then that it was time to stop having birthday parties with her brother.
Yep.
So
that would be it. Now, this abuse went on for 6 years until Gert could escape the only way that a woman could in 1944 at the age of 16. She dropped out of school, packed up, and left her mother's home to marry John Baniszewski. Polish, obviously.
I see. It was the ski that threw me off. Tipped me in.
So John was 18 and he was already a police deputy.
Oh.
Yeah. So he had a career ahead of him, and it was only his family who attended the small wedding. Her mother did not approve of the relationship with John, and Gert had no female friends of her own to attend with her.
Okay.
Since John was a deputy, although they did not have a lot of money, the bank did give them a loan and they got a modest house at the edge of town. Now, John, being new to the force, had all the crappy shifts, right? So he worked a lot. He would do a lot of overnight shifts. And so Gert would take him sandwiches at work to spend time with him. And the thing is that Gert doesn't know how to be a wife. Her mother hated her so much that she didn't teach her how to cook. But John had heard through social rumors that she was promiscuous, only because she was left to roam the streets unsupervised in the early 1940s.
Which clearly meant you slept with everybody.
Yes. So any young girl at that time that engaged in such behavior would have been labeled as easy or loose, right? So Gert was. John was pretty disappointed in the marriage too, when he realized that she didn't have the experience with men that he thought, and he had already been with some girls. So Gert, seeing sex as a horrid and painful chore instead of something fun that she would actively participate in, made her a less than desirable wife even more. She can't cook.
She's a child. I mean, he married a 16-year-old.
Thank you. Exactly. She can't cook. She's not a good lay. So what good is she, essentially? Remember, this is 1944.
I know, but I'm still feeling bad for a bad person now.
And we can. Yes, we still can. She is still a child at this point in time. Yeah. Some good things about her, though. She was really tight with money. And at first, she really kept the house clean. So John liked that. But she did not excel in the bedroom or with cooking. And which
means he's going to eat out a lot and have girlfriends.
Right. Perhaps one and the same.
I found his 1940s girlfriend or his plan. So.
Yep. Well, as it often does, all the sex leads to Gert becoming pregnant. And this has a profound effect on her. All of a sudden, she is very alive. She wants to cook right, take care of the house. And although she's never made friends with other women, she did learn from them about eating healthy and being healthy during pregnancy. She also used pregnancy as a way to not have sex with her husband because she would tell him that she didn't want to harm the baby.
Oh, and back then they probably believed that.
Absolutely. So she's very happy when she's pregnant.
Men were like, oh, well, I wouldn't want to with my large member poke this baby right in his head.
Because
that's possible.
My gigantic quivering member.
Right.
It's going to really harm this baby. Yep. Yes.
All the things 50s housewives used to tell their husbands.
The fragility of man. I love it.
And good for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. For the next decade of her life, she spent more time pregnant than not pregnant. And she really did thrive. She was happiest when she was pregnant, which is ironic considering the way that this even ends up being a true crime case, okay? But she really enjoyed pregnancy and motherhood. Okay.
So she's a good mom at this point?
Yes. Honestly, this is a wild case, Megan. It is a child abuse case, but you are going to be baffled by how all of this plays out. But she loves her children, very much so.
And how many does she actually have over these 10 years?
We'll get to it because it's a wild ride. It's not an easy answer. I can't just tell you a number because there's a whole ride with it. So strap in, baby. Here we go. Click, click. She just strapped her seatbelt, people. However, here she is pregnant, and she goes through miscarriages and things like that. All right. But once she had children, her affections were simply turned to her children and never really back to John. It's not really clear when John started to become physically abusive, but we know it wasn't during pregnancies or immediately after birth, but it does become a regular occurrence, likely in part due to the jealousy on John's part that Gert was not willing to do anything for him as a wife the way that he believed a wife should, but she would do anything for the kids, and she devoted all of her time and attention to them.
You know, her dad was devoted to her, and I feel like she was trying to be that devoted parent. And she was isolated by her mom.
Yeah, and she really was a devoted parent. So they have 4 children. While she did suffer from miscarriages and clear depression bouts after each miscarriage, their marriage was full of emotional highs and lows, as she seemed to be her most stable when she was pregnant and right after having a baby. She kept the house clean. She cooked really well at that point in time. She did all the wifely things. So perhaps things went well because when she was pregnant, he was also not beating her. Okay, so there is that whole cycle, right? She is being the wife and mother that she should be when she's pregnant, and he is not beating her.
Right, she's doing her duty at home at that point.
So he's
barefoot,
not
pregnant and in my kitchen.
And think about this, though. When you're not being abused, you have more emotional capability to do those things as well, right? It's a circle. It's a cycle.
She also has an incentive to stay pregnant.
100%. Yeah. So anyway, regardless, eventually it all comes to a head, and John would spend too much money on drinking. He would come home drunk. He learned, being a police officer, how to be strategic in where he hit her so that others couldn't see the bruises. Okay. He knew what he could get away with, what boundaries he could push being a police officer. And finally, Gert had had enough, and she files for divorce, which was unheard of. Okay. They have 4 children, and it's now the 1950s. This was something that didn't even cross her mind until she started hearing about other women doing it. And it gave her the idea that, oh, so people really can do this and be okay.
I can get out.
Mm-hmm. And she still felt like it was deeply shameful for a woman with 4 children, right? And as I said, it's the 50s, but she did. John didn't even contest it. She got full custody of all 4 of the children, and he didn't even try to fight it. He didn't want custody of them. He was just as happy to be rid of them.
I think in the 40s and 50s, that's probably pretty typical. Mm-hmm. I don't think that men wanted to actually parent. They wanted their prizes at home, and they went and worked and brought stuff back. And that's not to say that there weren't fantastic fathers.
Of course.
Hers was one.
Yeah. But John just so happened to enjoy going out and drinking with his buddies from work much more than being home with his children.
With his frigid wife and his screaming children.
Quite frankly, I think that with as much as she doted upon the children, I'm not certain John had the opportunity to bond. Let's throw him that bone as well.
Okay.
She was extremely protective and extremely doted to these children. So I don't think she would have tolerated him bonding. I think she would have saw that as a threat the way her own mother saw her bond with her dad as a threat.
Fair.
So only a few short months later, Gert finds herself a brand spanking new husband.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Did she know she was going to have the sex still?
Well, this one takes an interesting turn. And this guy's even more vile than John. His name was Edward Guthrie. His whole family was in attendance for the wedding. They all drank heavily throughout the night to celebrate the marriage. What Edward saw in Gert was her child support payments from John, because good old Ed himself, well, he didn't actually work.
Well, what did she see in him?
I have no idea, because not only did he not work, he just liked to drink all day. Like, didn't you have a problem with John's drinking? But now I think that it's a codependency. It was a panic.
Survivors of domestic violence very often seek out the same behaviors, or they recognize them but believe they can control them.
Yeah. And it's familiar, right? Oh yeah.
And maybe it wasn't as bad with him, right?
Sure. So he's drinking all day. He's got the child support checks. Since he's the man of the house, the checks came to him. Okay? Think about how fucked up that is.
Oh, United States of America, why?
I know. So Gert wasn't even aware of how much they would get or when one would come in. So that way, she had no idea of knowing just how much Ed was drinking away. Now, Eddie himself, he didn't care for the 4 loud, bratty children that were not his. He rarely had interactions with them at all, except for one night he came home drunk and he hit one of the children.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. The next morning, he woke up in the ditch outside with a nasty bump on the back of his head.
She hit him upside the head with a fucking frying pan.
Something.
And shoved him outside.
Now, Gert was only 5'6", and she was not a large woman in weight at all. But she had had enough meanness in her to deal with a drunk man hitting her
You
kid.
still haven't told me anything about Gert that makes me dislike her.
I know.
Okay.
I know it. I'm taking you for a ride. I read half of this book not hating Gert.
Okay.
Yeah. It was through her time with Eddie when he was sober that she learned that sex could be a pleasant act and that she actually could dominate a man with it.
Oh, girl.
That's what I mean
now
by
I like Gert even more.
It's an interesting turn. So when you immediately ask, like, did she realize that she would have to have sex with? I think what happened is when she met Ed and had sex with somebody that wasn't John for the first time and realized, oh my gosh, this doesn't hurt.
Good.
This feels good. I think that's what drew her in.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He could have been the biggest bastard ever if he was a good lay.
Yeah.
I mean, we can put up with a lot.
Right. And I mean, and she got sick of John because he wasn't, obviously.
No.
And he's an asshole. So she's like, well, you know what? He may still be a drunk and not work, but at least he treats me right in bed.
Okay. So she learns she can dominate sexually.
Yeah. And this is not good. Okay. We're
Well,
just going to
for
say
who?
it ends up being not a good learned behavior for Gert.
I see.
Yeah.
This isn't something that perhaps she keeps in the bedroom. It manifests somehow into something else.
She ends up ruining some lives with this skill that she's learned.
Oh God.
She's
going to become a dominatrix.
No, but she just learns how easy it is to manipulate men with their penises.
They're so stupid. The penises, not the ones they're attached to,
sure,
but sometimes
the penis
the control is strong with those things.
If you let it do all the thinking for you, that's where the problems come in. Yeah. So here's the thing. She does start to learn how to sexually manipulate Eddie. She even got him to sober up and get back into the workforce, which would be good for all of them, except that Eddie decided that without the drink and being in the workforce, he really was a better man. And he had his own money now. So he doesn't need a mediocre wife with four noisy children after all. So he doesn't need those child support payments. So
she rehabilitated a man and made him better for someone else.
With her vagina.
Yeah.
Even.
It's a magical
By
place.
sexually manipulating him to stop drinking and to go back to work. She turned him into a better person.
And then he left her.
And he goes and even without telling her, and he files for divorce. And the reason being, quote, the children annoyed him.
Okay.
End quote. Which they probably did.
They weren't his.
No, and they're young, 4 young kids. Yeah, it's a lot. The entire marriage from start to finish lasted a little over 3 months.
3 months?
3 months.
All right.
So here Gert is.
Power of the...
What do we say? The power of the pussy.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And you know I don't love saying it. So thank you for saying it for me.
Well, I add a little French twist to it to, make it.
Which means purse in French.
Yes. Money is very powerful too. So now Gert's a single mother of 4 once again. While out and about, she ran into John because it's a small, community. They start chatting, and wouldn't you know it, she invites him to have dinner at the house.
Her ex-husband?
Yeah, ex-husband John.
Like, come see the kids. I'll make you dinner. I know how to cook now.
Yes, that's what happens. She invites him to his own house, by the way.
He didn't care.
Nope. With his own children. They have dinner. The kids are delighted that daddy's there for dinner. Even more delighted that he's still there for breakfast the next morning.
Oh, really?
Because Gert, you got to know, she had to take an opportunity to show John all the things that she's learned in the last however many months without him. And it turns out John was pretty happy about all the things she learned.
So John didn't want to leave again.
So he did not. In their second marriage,
Jesus criminy,
their wedding was even smaller than the first. So they get married again.
Oh my God.
And this time, their attitudes towards one another, they're less serious. The pressure's off. They've already been through the worst of the worst, and they're coming back from the gates of divorce hell. Right? So John felt like he finally had the wife that he deserved.
Right.
Okay.
He just needed a different man to mold her into her.
That's right. To show her what sex could really be like and what an orgasm is for the first time.
It's fantastic. She's like, no, listen, what I learned is fucking lay down and don't move.
Oh, I say so.
You're doing it wrong. Stop.
Yes.
Just stop.
So now he's got a wife that will take care of the house, the kids, and his penis properly. And so he was a better husband in return, feeling like she finally was the one in control. Gert was a better wife. This lasted about a year before Gert becomes pregnant again.
Oh, baby 5.
This would be baby 5. However, at nearly full term, she miscarried and went through a stillbirth.
Awful.
Which is horrible. And this is where I'm going to earmark a turning point on Gert's mental health. All right. And although we can feel sorry for what she went through as a child and even here now as a mother, what she ends up doing with the rest of her life was her responsibility, and she is accountable, should be held accountable for it. She does go into a deep depression, and the marriage goes right back to where it was the first time around, with her not being the wife John wanted, John trying to beat her into compliance to be the wife he wants. And it started as him trying to slap her out of a hysteria bout. She went into like a literal, it was described as a literal hysterical fit, and he slapped her.
She's probably having an anxiety or a panic attack, and he slaps her.
Sure.
It's a good way to lose a hand at my house, but...
Same. But it turned into episodes of reoccurring abuse at that point in time where he felt she deserved it for her lack of being a proper wife and mother. She was in a severe depression after that miscarriage. So this lasted to the point where John was about to leave for good when he noticed a sudden change in Gert. She was suddenly back to her old chipper self. The house was clean. The kids were taken care of. She was cooking homemade meals again. And can you guess why?
She's pregnant.
She's pregnant again. By the end of their second marriage, which lasted 7 years, Gert had given birth to 2 more of John's children.
Okay. So she may have had more miscarriages, but we know she had 2 more live births.
In that 7 years, she did.
So this is 6 live births with John.
Correct. They are Paula, Stephanie, John Jr., Marie, Shirley, and James. Those are their 6 children. John had been the one to file for divorce the second time due to the constant emotional roller coaster that Gert would go through by getting pregnant, having a miscarriage, and going into a depression before getting pregnant again and then being fine again. So once again, she is given full custody, uncontested by John, this time of their 6 children, and now it's 1963. She's 35 years old with 6 children, and John's child support checks were not coming in regularly. She was about to be evicted, so within weeks of her divorce, she starts seeing a man who's 10 years younger than her.
Go.
Get it, Gert. Get it.
So apparently Gert's relatively attractive.
She's not unattractive. She's
Okay.
like a little sprite. Like
She's a little pixie.
She is.
With a powerful pussy.
For sure. I mean, she's 5'6", and she's like, I don't know, 110 pounds.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, So this man that's 10 years younger than her, his name is Dennis Wright. Dennis was going through his own divorce, which was not final yet, and Dennis had no children. Gert used the very same powers of manipulation through sexual advances with Dennis, who just seemed to be not altogether or very bright, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, guys. But I don't think he was coloring with every crayon in the box.
He was young and pretty, and he ate the crayons.
Yeah, possibly the glue, too.
Okay.
Gert and the kids moved into his home the very day after Dennis's soon-to-be ex-wife moved out, overtaking everything. His lovely home on East New York Street, this is in Indianapolis, was caked in filth. She did not clean, even to the point of garbage being on the floor, and there were several reports of one of the smaller children almost choking on pieces of garbage on more than one occasion. So we're back into our depressive state because she's not pregnant, right? She's got these 6 kids. She's not taking care of them. She's clearly got some mental health things going on. Now, Dennis was aware of the sexual manipulation, but was also willing to let it continue because he was getting sex whenever he wanted. And if she wanted something, he was willing to give it to her as long as she gave it to him. So, okay. But he had an escape plan, okay?
From his own home?
Mm-hmm. He figured out that he's going to need to leave because he's pretty unhappy with 6 children and a depressed wife living in filth. So he comes up with this plan. He knew that she would plan a date night. One where she would make a delicious meal, where she would clean the house, and then have a wild night of sex. And then within a couple of days, they would be right back in the vicious cycle where she's not taking care of the house, not taking care of the kids. He has caught on to her manic episodes, in other words, okay, to put some mental health perspective on this.
She's clearly significantly mentally ill.
Yes.
And spends a lot of time in these deep depressions. She's probably bipolar with borderline personality disorder.
Exactly. I actually think I say that in here. Like, it's not fair of me to diagnose her, but truly she is
Also,
bipolar with borderline.
Neither one of us are psychiatrists that are legally allowed to give that diagnosis. But sometimes when you've worked enough in this field and you've seen the same person and personalities over and over again.
Well, I actually do have that
recognize
degree.
it.
I just don't do that for a living.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I am not allowed to diagnose people, although in my head I do it every day.
Right. No, she 100% based on all the research, absolutely bipolar, borderline personality with severe depression that has to do with postpartum depression. Okay. So, remember, Dennis Wright, they're not married.
No.
This is an important piece because it's
the
interesting
60s now, though. Well,
it is.
The early 60s,
It's 19.
though.
Yep. It's 1963. They're not married. And he is recognizing her emotional roller coasters and knows he's seeing the cycle. He knows, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to come home. The house is going to be clean. She's going to cook me a homemade meal, and then we're going to have amazing sex. And within a couple of days, I'm going to be right back in this. Like, I've got to get out of this.
And he's only like 25 years old.
Yes, he is. So he plans to leave her, and that's when Gert tells him that she's pregnant. Now, Dennis is like a caged animal. He had an escape plan. He recognized the cycle he was in. So what does he do? He's not going to stand for her being pregnant.
Is he going to fucking assault her?
Oh, he
into losing
assaults
the
her
baby?
bad. He beats her over and over and over in the stomach, in the chest, in the face, to the point that the very next morning she miscarries.
I don't fucking like him either.
Oh, no, we don't like Dennis. Dennis is a complete dick. Yeah. The relationship, you would think at this point in time, would be over.
Well, yeah, he can fulfill his escape plan now.
He could have left, which is what he was planning on doing before she told him that she was pregnant.
But now that he's murdered his unborn child and beaten her to within an inch of her life, he's going to stay?
He stays because Gert, being overwhelmed with she loves being pregnant, remember? She's so upset that she lost this baby that she completely changes. And she goes onto one of her highs and she starts keeping the house clean. She starts cooking the meals. She's taking care of the kids. She jumped into bed with him whenever he wanted. She became the complacent, dutiful wife that she wasn't because they're not married, but person that he wanted.
And how she was when they first met.
Yes, how she was when they first
met. Till he moved her in.
So at this point in time, she keeps a hot meal on the table when he gets home from work. The house is spotless. He's getting laid whenever he wants. Dennis is happy. He doesn't need to escape anymore.
Or hopefully beat her anymore?
Right? No, he didn't.
You're not aware of any?
Not.
Okay.
No, he did not. Because the next time she becomes pregnant, Gert doesn't tell him. She keeps it a secret as long as humanly possible. And then even when it became very obvious, they still did not talk about it. They did not talk about it. They continued to have sex. Her belly continued to swell. He did not beat her, but they just didn't talk about how this baby was Dennis's. Okay? She goes to the hospital to give birth to their son, Dennis Jr., only to return home to discover that Dennis Sr. had left without a word while she was delivering. That was his escape plan. He decided the minute that he figured out that she was pregnant, that he was just going to wait for that moment, and he took it.
And he left.
And he's gone.
And now she has an infant and no income.
And 6 other children.
In his house.
In his house. He left his house. That was a nice house. I mean, it was till they destroyed it.
Holy shit.
Yep. This was the most humiliating and painful thing to have said, according to Gert, to have happened. Okay. So this is where we start to see her disassociate from reality and start to really live in her own realm. She insisted to anyone that would listen that Dennis Wright had married her before he left. She even called herself Mrs. Wright so that the baby was not deemed a bastard. In one tale, she was a widow making up a lavish story about Dennis's death. It just depended on who she was talking to.
Do we know if Dennis is okay?
Dennis is alive.
Okay, just wanted to throw that out, making sure there wasn't like a, hey, I'm going to the hospital, have our baby. He said, not my baby, and she didn't like bury him in the basement or something.
No, okay. Dennis, you know, he's here and
Dennis
there.
Dennis is a fucker.
He left. Yeah, he abandoned his...
He abused her until she lost one baby and then abandoned because it didn't work out real well the first time.
Yep. Then just left his infant son. Mm-hmm.
Never cease to amaze me what we can create as a society, huh?
And in response, she just told everybody that Dennis had married her and that so that Dennis Jr. wasn't a bastard, and you know everybody had to call her Mrs. Wright. And then in another reality, she was a widow, and in a lot of ways she was. I mean, he was gone.
Okay, fair.
So here's the thing. She stops eating. She stops drinking. This made the older children have to take care of her. By 1965, we have 7 children here. I want to take you through their names and their ages.
Again.
Okay. Mm-hmm. By 1965, she lived, Gert lived alone with her 7 children. There's Paula, who's 17.
Okay.
Stephanie, who's 15. John, who's 12, Marie, who's 11, Shirley, who's 10, James, who's 8, excuse me. Those are all John's children. And then Dennis Lee Wright Jr., who is 1.
Okay.
Okay. She's 37 years old. Okay. 5'6", and 100 pounds, like losing weight. I mean, she's not eating. She's under 100 pounds. Doctors came and checked on her regularly, and the rumors in the neighborhood are that she's just chronically ill. Things were hard for them. The neighborhood took pity on her and allowed her to babysit their children, and they paid her for it. Since she had all those kids after all, they figured she's good with kids.
Oh, God.
And she did their laundry as well for a fee. So, like, they were suddenly, like how it was described as, these other stay-at-home moms were suddenly too busy to be able to do their own laundry or watch their own children. And so they would pay Gert to do those things for them when really they were just recognizing she needs an income. She needs a way, and let's help her out. This is what we can do.
Okay.
So that's what the neighborhood did for her. John's child support checks had stopped because he heard about Dennis Wright and decided that his children didn't need any of his support anymore because, she's got Dennis's money.
Well, that's an asshole move.
Right. Now, up to this point, we have talked exclusively about Gert and not really mentioned the lives of the children at all.
Okay.
Other than Gert, who doted upon them, and that is true. The Baniszewski children could do no wrong. Okay. The oldest, Paula, well, as much as her mother Gert wanted to pretend like she was a perfect angel, Paula was an unsupervised teenage girl that liked to explore her sexuality with older and sometimes married men, and did at every unsupervised chance that she got. Paula, remember, was shaped and warped entirely from her mother, seeing how her mom manipulated men with sexual favors. And it's not like their houses were ever big enough to hide the details of sex from the children. And like her mother before her, Paula knows that the only way out for a woman is to marry well, which is why she takes to sneaking out in the evenings and meeting up in bars with older men that have money. The problem is they also have wives, and she's too young and naive to figure that out before she ends up pregnant by a married man 30 years older than her.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, it didn't take long for Gert to figure it out, and with her mental health barely hanging on by a neuron at this point in time, this is basically the breaking point.
Okay. She has an unwed teenage daughter. She's an unwed middle-aged woman with 7 children. Who's basically dying from her mental health issues.
She can't have the community knowing this. She's distraught at knowing that her daughter repeated the same mistakes that she had, so she goes off the deep end at this point. She stops them from feeding her. She stops the children from cleaning the house and keeping things together. And she does not allow Paula to acknowledge her pregnancy or to speak of it to anyone. Her siblings know, but no one else is allowed to know. So life for Paula must go on. She speaks of her pregnancy to no one. She stops seeing boys and everyone is tiptoeing around Gert. Then, one day, she meets up with a friend named Darlene McGuire. Darlene was a genuine nice human being with a good heart, it would seem, although later some things come out, but we're not going to focus on Darlene. Darlene was someone who would take in strays, animal and human.
I know those people.
Yeah. So Darlene introduced Paula to 2 sisters that Darlene herself had just met that day, Sylvia and Jenny Likens.
How old are they?
15 and 16.
Okay.
Jenny had leg braces strapped on over her clothing due to childhood polio that she had never recovered from. And Sylvia was a year older than Jenny. The 2 described how just the night before, this is how Jenny and Sylvia become strays that Darlene takes in and then introduces to Paula. Okay? Because the night before, the girls, Sylvia and Jenny, had been woke up by their mother, who told them that she can't take living with their father anymore, and rushed all 3 of them off to the bus station in Indianapolis. They had slept on a smelly bus all night, and when they were out of money, they got off, essentially. And their mother, Betty, went into a grocery store to steal them some breakfast, and she was caught and she was arrested. So the girls were left to walk the streets of Indianapolis, hungry, alone, and scared. And that's when they met Darlene McGuire, who found them, befriended them. Paula thought Jenny to be very dull, but liked Sylvia and thought that they could be friends. So Paula took Jenny and Sylvie home and went into their mother Gert's bedroom, where she lay in her deep depressive state, and told her the dramatic tale of how they had come to Indianapolis and asked if they could stay the night. Like, basically, these girls need help, Mom. Can they stay here? To which Gert replies, quote, "You lovely girls are welcome to stay the night. Of course you can. Don't you worry. We will take good care of you. We'll take good care of you, and in the morning we'll find out where your mother has gotten to. Don't worry about a thing." End quote. Okay. Sylvia thanked Mrs. Wright, genuinely believing what she said. Now, remember, Mrs. Wright is Gert, who's really not named Mrs. Wright at all, but that's what she makes everyone call her. So Mrs. Wright said, "Oh, you just call me Mom, dear. Everyone does. All the little boys and girls who come through that door." Sylvia had no way of knowing that this was the beginning of the end of her life. And that is where I'm going to leave us for part 1.
Oh my God. So Paula befriends these girls, though, through another woman.
She does.
Who takes in strays and who had kind
of
befriended.
Not another woman, another girl. It's another teenager.
Darlene's a teenager too?
Darlene is a friend of Paula's.
I see.
Yeah.
I was thinking she was some adult woman who was like kind of helping Paula since her mom wasn't real accepting of her pregnancy. And
No. Darlene is just a teenager, introduces Paula to them. Paula's like, well, you know what? I mean, they have a household full of kids. There are 7 children living in Gert's household, but all of their friends, they're the hangout guys.
Well, they're free reign because not Paula.
No, Gert.
Gert is in the bedroom about dying.
Correct. Exactly. She's so mentally ill at this point that she's just laying there in a depressive state. And it's the older kids. It's Stephanie, who's 15. It's Paula, who's 17, that are taking care of these younger kids. And at the same token, all their friends from school, they hang out at Gert's house.
Sylvia or Sylvie?
Sylvia,
but they call her Sylvie for
short.
Okay.
Correct.
And she is the 16-year-old?
She is. And her sister Jenny
is 15, who has the braces
on her legs. Yep, is 15.
Yeah, this is a wild ride because as you're reading through this entire story so far, I'm waiting for one of these children to be named Sylvie or Sylvia of her children.
Right? Yes.
But no, this is another child.
And I told you, she doted upon her children.
They can do no wrong.
They can do no
other than
wrong.
premarital sex and pregnancy, but that was fine because she did that too. Just don't
Right.
talk about it.
And
we don't talk about Fight Club, Charnell.
Not only that, but she knows it's her own lack of parenting and supervision that have led to that.
Absolutely.
Paula was out at bars all hours of the night, gone from that home.
With 47-year-old married men.
Exactly. Going to hotel rooms. It was not stated. I couldn't find this, but y'all, it wouldn't surprise me at all if her and Stephanie had ways of helping make ends meet by using their body. I mean, truly.
And Stephanie was 16 or 15.
Stephanie is 15.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they were 2 years apart, but Paula's the oldest.
Paula's the oldest
Okay.
at 17. Yep.
Oh my God. Well, bathe me since you left me hanging.
Okay,
And
okay.
then if you're a Patreon, you get to flip right in and listen to the rest of the story.
You do. And if you're not, you should join Patreon so that you can listen to the rest of the story. I still have part 2 is going to be much longer than part 1 was, but I really just wanted to break this up so that this first episode, you can get to know the history of Gert.
Yes.
And how she had all of these children and where we get to the point of introducing Sylvia and her sister Jenny. And
I get the feeling I'm going to feel less remorse for Gert in part 2.
Oh, no one's going to have any sympathy for a damn thing of Gert in part 2. Nope. Do not get attached to Gert.
Okay.
Everybody. No.
I won't.
She doesn't deserve it. Let me find you this brain bath, though, that I saved on my phone and I have since lost.
For those of you worried, we have done anything to hurt Brain Bath Jason. He is simply gone this weekend and he will return.
Right. We didn't even acknowledge that he wasn't here.
No,
Okay.
No, we did not.
This brain bath was inspired by the brain bath you once told us about the note that your lovely daughter got for having a single bag of trash on her doorstep.
My favorite.
So I don't know what happened in this community, but this is a real letter that was sent to the residents at a community, and it was signed, "Thank you, management." But here it is. Due to the recent actions of a specific tenant, we have been forced to update our community rules.
Oh my.
Please find these new rules below. 1, no trash bags placed outside your door. That reminded me of your daughter.
It does.
2, no loud music after 10 p.m.
Fair.
Very reasonable.
Sounds like a nice place to live.
Yep. 3, no yodeling at any time.
Well,
Anytime.
never. You can never yodel.
4, do not feed the squirrels nachos.
As opposed to what? A chili dog? Like,
Just very specifically, not nachos.
how about just don't feed the squirrels?
Right. 5, do not change the sign for the fitness center so that it reads Fatness Center. 6, do not pull out Yu-Gi-Oh cards and threaten to send residents to the shadow.
I'm not a Yu-Gi-Oh player.
Nope. 7, do not climb.
If it's like Pokemon Go, though, those people are annoying.
They are very intense, very intense. 7, do not climb other people's balconies while drunkenly yelling, "I am Spider-Man."
I make no promises.
8, no zip lines.
From balcony to balcony. Yep. But Spider-Man needs a web.
Right. I mean, it's easier when you can just shoot it out of your wrist,
Right?
but okay. 9, do not place rent checks in a bear trap outside the rental office.
Somebody was very unhappy.
10, do not make rent checks out to you greedy motherfuckers.
Oh.
11, do not yell at the moon. 12, do not enter the laundry room in a what is this? In a luchador mask? What's a luchador mask?
Luchador.
Oh, luchador.
You know the
yes!
wrestling? Yeah. Like Nacho Libre.
I am so sorry because I had to zoom in. Without my spectacles on, I thought that was an N.
Lunch?
It is a C-A. Okay. It's Luchador.
Luchador.
Okay. I was
It's
putting an
Nacho
N in there.
Libre.
I got to zoom. So anyway, and do not wear that mask and then attempt to wrestle other residents in the laundry room.
This makes sense.
Yep. Number 13, no trick-or-treating unless you were a kid and it's Halloween.
Oh, Halloween is important, but...
Right. 14, do not yell, order up, and throw hot dogs at people as they walk past your window.
I want to do it.
So bad. Yes.
When you give me things
Right
I can't do, I do. I want to open this up and just hand people like popcorn or
Order
something.
Up. Yeah. 15, do not attach basketball hoops above residents' doors. Knock and then dunk on them when they answer.
Is this a fraternity?
It has to be a college town. All it says is due to the recent actions of a specific tenant.
Yeah, this is a frat boy, man. Brayden, are you okay?
Megan's checking on her children. Moving forward, failure to abide by these rules will be grounds for eviction. Thank you, management.
I've seen some like that have like randomly like unreasonable things. That was...
Do not feed the squirrels nachos.
You guys, just take that one. This is very passive aggressive by management.
It is.
Evict him.
Evict this one person.
Evict the one person because it cost you more to make that sign.
Do not change the fitness center sign to fatness
center.
Oh my God. So there's our cleanse. We are
Thank you for
cleansed
cleansing
before
me.
we move on to
because I get to be
horrific part
traumatized
2.
immediately.
Yes, you are going to be traumatized immediately. If you're a Patreon, you also can be traumatized immediately by listening to the second part. But we'll end on a good brain bath to make you feel better at the end. But
okay.
So, and if you want to become a Patreon, go ahead and click on the link in the show notes, and you can easily do that to move on to part 2. But otherwise, we hope that you keep it curious.
And keep listening.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.